As a kid who loved to read, I used to have this mental image of writers, especially the successful ones, in which they were almost mythological figures or hermits that were somehow apart from society and only intersected with it when it was time to deliver a new book. I thought about writing as something that happened in solitary spaces, where a single madman put his fingers on a keyboard and just let the words start flowing until a masterpiece was on the page. I'm not entirely sure where this mental image came from. Perhaps it's because I so often saw writers portrayed as quirky individualists or learned about writing as something that came from surges of inspiration, divine inspiration, the muses. And maybe that was even underscored by the fact that when I would sit down and write fantasy stories as a kid and as a teenager, I didn't feel like I could share them with my family or friends because I worried that they would think my stories were weird or they just wouldn't get them. So I'd keep them to myself and work on them alone in my room like that hermit that I envisioned in my head. Even as I got older and wiser about the realities of what makes for a rewarding creative life, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily include locking yourself in your room and never sharing your work, I have found that plenty of writers still treat their craft as an unnecessarily isolated experience. For some, there's a fear that engaging with others about their work will lead to it being stolen. For most, there's the fear that something deeply personal to who they are will be judged. And for many more, there's just the reality that we're busy people who juggle myriad responsibilities and have to squeeze our writing time into the cracks of our days. We just want to create when we can, and we don't always want to put structure or formality around it. Ultimately, taking time to create something is more rewarding than creating nothing. But I still think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't connect with the wider community of writers. When I was 15, I had the opportunity to travel to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for the South Carolina Writers Workshop's annual conference, an event that I think has been discontinued or perhaps has a new form, but at the time, it was the largest writing conference I could find near my home in central Kentucky. I was vastly out of my depths attending workshops with writers and published authors who had been honing their craft longer than I had been alive. I was uncomfortable. I was scared. I was practically nauseous with nerves each day and each time I realized I would need to speak with someone. And it was absolutely the best experience of my teenage years. Sure, I would have been alone the entire weekend if it weren't for the group of 5 or 6 middle-aged women who took me under their wings, but it was also my first exposure to any sort of collectively creative environment. I was around people who cared about books and publishing and how ideas get shaped into stories. Even though I was young and inexperienced, being able to sit with and just listen to the conversations of people who care deeply about these topics opened my mind to so many new ideas, and it elevated my sense of taste and gave me a perspective on the industry, an industry that I barely even knew existed. There were still plenty of uncomfortable moments, like when the lady who had been in a workshop with me saw me near the hotel bar and asked what I was drinking. When I informed her it was a virgin strawberry daiquiri, she laughed and said, "What are you, 16?" At which point I told her I was actually 15, and she apologized profusely, walked away in a hurry. But the discomfort of the entire experience made it even better. Not the drink experience so much, but the conference experience. Because it pushed me out of my comfort zone and gave me nowhere to hide. It completely deconstructed my mental image of the solitary writer and opened my eyes to what is possible when creatives come together. You see, when creatives come together as a community, it's more than just an opportunity to socialize. Whether you want to think about it as a form of group positive affect or collective effervescence, when a community comes together with a common objective, the shared experience is more significant than what any individual could have on their own. Talking about and engaging with ideas related to the creative process has this really beautiful effect in that it forces you to reflect on your own process, your own stories, your own goals. If you struggle with feeling energized or motivated to work on your creative projects, the best thing you can do is talk about your craft with people who understand it. As they reflect their own processes and projects back to you, that sense of excitement that you've been missing, it will come back. On top of that, it's probably painfully simple and obvious, But getting involved with writing groups and communities is the easiest way to meet other writers and people in the industry. If you want to make a career out of writing or want to see your work appear in a traditional publication medium, networking and meeting people is the best way to get your foot in the door and increase your odds of getting out of the slush pile. Agents and editors get hundreds of queries each week, some for great works and others for works that aren't quite ready yet. Whether they're representing an online publication, a magazine, a book publisher, or something else, chances are they can only spend a few minutes max with each pitch that comes their way. If the pitch doesn't leap off the page and grab their attention, they'll pass. Being able to mention a specific interaction, referral, or request from that person to send them your work will go a long way toward making your pitch stand out. Plus, because you'll have that industry exposure from being part of a creative group, you'll understand the norms, the lingo, and the expectations going into it. If you're an introvert or have social anxiety, like me, and think this all sounds a little terrifying, fear not. The beauty of writing groups and communities is that you're mostly there with other introverts. Everyone is a little bit awkward at first, and if honing your craft is important to you, at some point, you have to decide that your craft is worth dealing with the damn discomfort. In my mind, there's no perfect substitution for large in-person conferences, but the truth is that those are few and far between. They can be expensive, and if you live in a rural area, greetings from the foothills of Appalachia, by the way, there may not be large ones or ones that cater to your genres in your area. That's why I'm so gung-ho about our new online community arm of Howdy Curiosity. I think back to what that first writing conference in Myrtle Beach meant to me as a young writer, and it gets me so excited about what we can build together in an online community. Right now, when you join the free community, you get early and discounted access to register for our book clubs. You'll have the opportunity to participate in AMAs and submit questions for industry experts when we bring them in for workshops and interviews. And you can participate in monthly writing challenges to stay accountable for making progress toward your creative goals and objectives. I won't keep the community free forever, but when you join now, you can lock in that free membership as long as you stay with the community. I'll be transparent. My main goal is getting this community off the ground, engaged, and growing. And if you're willing to join me while the paint is still drying and we're finding our footing, I think you deserve to be rewarded for that. That's why the membership's free. I'm working hard to create a space where writers like me, writers who have busy day jobs and family obligations and a million other things that take them away from their craft, can have a space to invest in that creative part of themselves that brings them so much joy and fulfillment, and that all too often gets neglected. If you're tired of neglecting that part of yourself too, or just want to spend more time with people who get you, head over to community.howdycuriosity.com to sign up for free. Thanks for listening.